Hello and welcome to tonight's episode of Georgia Detours. I'm your host, September Whitfield, and I hope you all are ready to take a tour of some of Georgia's gems. Tonight we're exploring some unique perspectives about what happens after death. Our first destination is an annual celebration held in honor of those who have passed on from this life. Let's see what's happening at La Dia de los Muertos.
You'll want to keep your skulls attached to your bodies for this one, because this is not Halloween. This is Dia de los Muertos, a Mexican holiday celebrated across the world by Latinx communities to pay homage and respect to their late relatives. But just don't take it from me. See for yourselves. This is Juenia, a local resident of Buford Highway, and she has this altar for her mother.
Yes, we put in law to memory to my mother. We believe they coming in November 2nd to smell the food.
Ooh. Ooh, what is that one? Is that one a chocolate?
Yes.
Ooh, that one smells so good.
We put flowers and fruit.
Oh, okay.
And candles means the light.
Oh, this is wonderful.
We show it with flowers, the way to coming in, inviting them to come to smell the food. We believe they not eating, but they smell. You know?
Okay.
Cactus.
Cactus.
Fruit.
Oh, nice green. Okay.
Sugar cane.
Sugar cane.
For our children.
Oh, the fresh one for the children. Okay.
And bread and tamales.
Okay. Is this the pan de muerto?
Yes.
Okay. And that's usually made around this time, right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, what is that?
Orange peel.
Orange peel?
Sometimes they put in the bread.
In the bread? Okay. Oh, coffee, right?
Coffee.
Oh, it smells so good.
So we believe all people come, enjoy the smell of the food.
Okay.
When they leave, it's the kind of food they usually eating. So we put in love or people passed away.
That's wonderful. And then the flowers, are they just for decoration to like celebrate the livelihood of them, or?
We use a special flower we call simpasuchi.
Mm-hmm.
Means flowers for dead people.
Oh, okay.
The color is orange.
Oh, orange, yes, lots of orange.
That's a special flower we use to put this table.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Everything is so lovely and so fresh, and it's just something that you don't find many places. It's just so unique. Tell us about your altar today.
This display, this altar, is all just stuff that my partner has accumulated over the years. He likes to collect these types of things, and he decided to put it together for a very artistic display / altar for this festival. He is a member of HOGAR, which it's the Hispanic Organization for Growth and Advancement and Retention at Georgia Gwinnett College. They have various programs to try to keep Latin students on campus, those who are considering dropping out and stuff like that. And they have all kinds of outreach efforts, particularly for first generation students. You know, sometimes there are students, particularly in the Latino community, who go to Georgia Gwinnett College and say neither one of their parents went to college. And they don't know about things like even what you do at the registrar's office, or how to get scholarships, or how financial aid works and stuff like that, because they're the first one. So they do a lot of outreach efforts to people like that too. Yeah, it almost got rained out. It really did. It just started pouring rain, and we had to put everything back, but then it quit raining. Thank you. And then we just brought all this stuff back out here. Okay. And it turns out the rain was a pain, but it didn't ruin everything. We're having fun, and there's lots of other displays and things like that, and food, and they're burning incense over there, but you know, lots of different stuff going on.
Okay, so you have to tell me, what do we have here today?
Okay, we have elotes, which is corn on the cob. We put a dowel in it, mayonnaise, some cheese, and then our own homemade seasonings. And then we have esquites, which is corn in a cup. We make that with chicken stock. There's garlic, jalapenos, onions, and then an herb called epazote. And we mix all that together, a little bit of salt. We put it in a cup with fresh squeezed lime, mayonnaise, and it's a little splash, yeah, a little husband-wife rivalry here. And then we do mayonnaise and cheese, and then you choose your seasoning, which all of our seasonings are homemade. Oh, that's wonderful. And this is just literally a family-run business with our 2 kids, and then our shirt represents all 4 of us. Oh my God, on our little ears and cord. Thank you.
What's your company called?
We're called El Elote. Yep.
And is it on Buford Highway? Or?
No, we're actually in Sandy Springs. We are the first food tent in Sandy Springs. And we just closed out our season, and then we're going to reopen in May. So, and this is our we figured why not go with the bang by being here for Dia de los Muertos.
And this is the perfect event for it.
Perfect event.
Especially now that the rain cleared out.
Thank you, yes.
Hey guys, we are with Marian Liu, the organizer of the We Love Buhai organization and the event organizer of this whole festival. So tell us a little bit about this whole thing, the Day of the Dead, and how you brought it to Buford Highway.
Last year we had a Halloween event, and this year we decided that since we're on Buford Highway, since it is a really central location for the Hispanic community in Atlanta, that we would do Day of the Dead and not combine it with Halloween. And we felt like this was more representative and authentic to Buford Highway. And then we just started inviting people. You know, we had a large event a couple months ago, and this is our follow-up event to that. It's in the same place. We invited some of the same vendors and actually just spread the word. So we have a lot of new people here too, and we just wanted to give people an opportunity to come to Buford Highway to participate in an awesome event that should be on Buford Highway. But we do think that exposing more people to these traditions is really important and also fun, and also brings the community together. Buford Highway is really meaningful to me personally. I've lived in Atlanta for 13 years, but I just moved to Buford Highway 3 years ago. And I think it always felt like a place where I felt welcome. And in talking to a lot of different people, everyone loves Buford Highway because everyone's from somewhere else, but here we're all together. And here there's so much stuff that's familiar to me, familiar to people from all over the world. So Buford Highway is all about inclusion and diversity, and making sure that everyone in Atlanta has a place to call home is something that's really important to me and really important to the organization. So we just want to make sure that everyone feels welcome.
Ya estoy como un niño con nuevo juguete, contento y feliz. No puedo evitarlo.
Well, as you can see, the rain is definitely starting to come down, so it did put a damper on the event, but the people still decided to celebrate and share their traditions. I'm Justin.
Para mí.
In our next segment, we'll meet someone especially skilled in creepy creations. Let's head out to Newnan, Georgia, the home of Wonder Goblin Toys.
My name is James Sizemore, and I own Wonder Goblin Toy Company. Just getting into making the actual toys, just over the past several years, but I've been making monsters ever since I was a kid. My parents were potters, so I always had clay around me and was always sculpting monsters and stuff. Actually, I've got this guy over here is one of the first monsters I ever made in clay. He's like a Godzilla homage. I was a big fan. Probably around I'd say the 6 age mark. Every single toy comes from a different place, and it's just my brain just spitting out stuff and me sort of grabbing things and putting them together. It's all just conglomerations of influences from old kaiju films, Godzilla movies, and weird alien, sci-fi movies and stuff. And there's so much mythos and stuff that I've been working on creating over the years for my own little universe. What I'll do usually is I'll come up with a queen of a species, and then I'll form children of that queen mother and have different creatures all sort of centered around that species, that family. So I'm working on one right now, the Queen Haggapus. I'm working on its spawn, basically, the defenders, the ones that defend the queen. That's currently in production. I'm creating like a whole universe around that character and that world. Part of how I form my own mythos for my creatures is just creating like a family, you know, where they all sort of exist together, and all of the Haggapuses just existing together and eating and feeding and hanging out in this aquatic cave. I love creating universes that have their own species that's at the top of the food chain, that's not human, you know. Having them all around me when I work it's inspirational. It keeps me motivated, keeps me going to want to make the next one. And drawing and sculpting and painting, just something I've always had in my life. It's always been there for me, and it wasn't until somewhat recently that I decided to make the shift from big life-size monsters for film into small little handheld monsters toys. Making monsters for film is a lot of fun. It's more stress, I think, than fun for me, because of the deadlines and the amount of work that goes into it and the expectations and stuff, and not having, I've never really had like a big crew. It's always just been me and a couple of people. It's a very rewarding process getting to see them come to life on the screen. Every time I watch a new movie, I'm like, God, why did they have to use CGI there? They could have just made a mask. I'm much more a fan of the practical effects than I am the CGI that you see these days. I've seen CGI done well, you know, don't get me wrong. But if you can do it with practical, you should do it with practical. It blows me away, the stuff that people can do with just their hands. Technical abilities of practical effects artists these days have far surpassed what we used to be able to do. And there's just no excuse for it. You can do it with animatronics and puppetry, the bodysuits that you can make. You can do some amazing work without CGI. Even if it's campy, you know, like some of the stuff that we saw in the 80s. I mean, there's some really beautiful work that was from the 80s too, not just campy work. You know, you had people like John Carpenter making movies in the 70s with stuff that's like way better than anything you see now. It blows me away, the stuff that people can do with just their hands. I gotta get my hands dirty and sculpt with it and see it come to life in my hands. It's just much more personal for me. Making horror films on an independent budget is tricky. During the week, I would sit at home and make all of my monsters, like just plugging away, sculpting things, you know, making prosthetics, teaching myself through like videos online and like reading Tom Savini books and stuff on like how to do this stuff. Just kind of taught myself how to pull it all together, and with the help of some really great friends, we made The Demon's Rook, which was my first movie. Raised a bunch of money through like crowdfunding sources, and after 3 years of weekends of work, we compiled it all, made a big movie out of it, and premiered it all over the world at different film festivals and stuff. And now it's out on DVD. You can buy it online and everything. And then from there, we made a few movies since then. I've produced a couple of movies, I've done the special effects for a few movies. Had to kind of phase that out a little bit and not spend so much of my time on it, because it doesn't really pay the bills working on movies independently. It's something that you end up just sort of putting all of your own like resources and everything into, and at a certain point, you know, after so many years, you're bled dry, and you gotta make that money back somehow, you know, which is why I started the toy company. I've got all these ideas for monsters and creatures, and making a monster life size, it takes months and months and months of work, whereas making smaller monsters, you can make a lot more, a lot faster, more expressive for me to be able to do that. One definitely fed into the other. I mean, I wouldn't be making toys now if I hadn't have made the monsters for the movies first. It just kind of happened naturally that way. I just woke up one day and I was just like writing the script for this movie that I've been trying to pitch to producers, and I was just, you know what? I'm gonna make toys. I'm just gonna take these monsters, I'm gonna shrink them down, I'm gonna make them into toys. Because I was looking around at all the toys in my house, and it was like, it'd be really cool to make these, you know? I started out with resin, working with just everything, all totally handmade, right here in the shop, you know, sculpting it, moving from that to molding it myself, and casting them myself, and sanding them down, and assembling them, and painting them, and everything. I did that for the first couple of years, and ended up just sort of moving into this more sustainable business practice where I sculpt it and make the prototypes myself and that, but now I send off the prototypes, I wouldn't say mass production, but I get them made in mass quantities so that they can be shipped back to me, and all I have to do is paint them and assemble them and sell them. Don't have to do all the crazy like molding and casting, anymore. It just saves a lot of time. It allows me to focus on the fun part for me, which is the sculpting and the painting process. You got to figure out the jointing, figure out the size. You got to figure out, how it's going to move, how it's going to, be molded. You got to take all that into consideration before you start sculpting. Then, once you've gotten everything figured out, you've talked to the people. For instance, for me, I'm working with a guy in Japan who is going to be molding this and casting it. So I communicate with him directly to give him the concept drawings. I'm like, what do you think? Does this need to be changed? Does this need to be thickened up? He'll tell me if something's gonna have a hard time in the mold or not. I'll make those changes. And then once I've got that, I start sculpting. I sculpt in like an oil-based clay. From there, you just, I work all the pieces individually. Do like the body, I sculpt the cap, I sculpt the arms, I sculpt the legs separately. And then after that, what I'll do is I'll mold it myself in silicone. I'll take that mold and I'll pour wax, like a hard toy wax, into the mold. They'll take that, send all those casts to me, all the blanks. I'll take them, paint them with soft vinyl paints, and you got to wear a respirator when you work with paints. Stuff's very, very strong smelling. And then I'll assemble them and package them. I usually make my own packaging with bags, like header cards. You see like the old school vintage style, like a tag and like a bag. Bagged and tagged is what we call it. And put them up for sale in the shop and sell them off. That's the process. Taught myself through just kind of trial and error at first, and then the kindness of friends chiming in and saying, hey, you should do it this way instead. And going to conventions and meeting other toy makers and talking to them and picking their brains. And to do this, you just kind of have to jump into the community and be a part of it and just make friends and just listen. Just don't be afraid to listen to other people and just take notes and learn from yourself, learn from your own mistakes. There's a lot of things that I've done in my earlier times of making toys where I look back on it now, I'm like, oh man, if I'd just done it this way, it would have been so much faster. Usually when I make a release, it's only like 10, maybe 20 tops toys, because I'm painting them all myself, and each one takes hours to paint. And I'll usually hold like a raffle or a lottery. All the collectors, they'll go to the page. There's a lottery form that they can fill out on the day of the lottery. They submit it to me. I take all those names and I put them in a random name picker. And then the random name picker decides who gets to be selected to have the opportunity to buy the art. It's a lot better than having a shop drop. Well, shop drops are fun too, but when you just put them in the shop, here they are, they're for sale. It's usually the people with the fastest internet connection that grab them. So you see a lot of the same collectors popping up. When you make it available to everyone and do a raffle where it's like 12 hours long, gives people plenty of time, all the different time zones to be able to chime in and say that they want one. It's just a way that gives everyone a little bit more of a chance to collect the art. I've always loved making art that can be affordable to people like me, so that I can just have them all over the world. I sell to all over the States and California and Canada, all over in Asia, Japan, Thailand, Mexico. I sell all over, and it's such a rewarding feeling to be able to, ship them out to all those different places and know that my children are out running around all over the world. The toy collecting community it's really cool. It's just people that love art in toy form, adults like me that just want to tap into that nostalgia of being a kid again and having this really awesome, colorful toy, but made with an attention to detail that a lot of the toys we had growing up didn't have. We're talking about, figures that are made by artists that basically just wanted to make interactive art. I think that's the inspiration a lot of us as toy makers. We wanted to make something that people could play with, because when you make paintings or sculptures, they're great, they're beautiful. You see them in a gallery or in a museum, and they can really tap something there that sticks with you. But with a toy, we're able to make them on larger scale so we can take the price down to something that people with regular day jobs can afford, you know, and then they can have that art, they can move it around, they can pose it, they can put it in different areas and pose it with other toys, and it's just a more fun, interactive way of collecting art. I collaborate with a lot of different toy makers. I find it to be very invigorating to collaborate with people. You can't spend too much time by yourself working. You gotta work with other people. You know, we're social creatures. I like working with artists, whether it's from the ground up where we'll sculpt something together or not, or whether they'll just send me blanks. A lot of times other toy makers will just send me blank versions of their toys for me to paint. We'll sell them either in my shop or their shop, or go to a convention and sell them together. And I do a lot of that just to kind of keep it fun. Artists that take their art too seriously, it's just not as fun, you know? You gotta be able to laugh at yourself, you know? It took me over a decade of just like solid working before I finally started making a profit off my art. Work is fun for me. If I had to do something else, I just wouldn't have the energy, the proper energy to put into it to make the creatures have the life that they have. It just wouldn't be the same. I'm not really big into people. I like monsters better. Whenever you watch a movie and there's monsters, you know, versus people, I'm always rooting for the monster. I can't help it. I've always got a soft spot for the monster. To be comfortable in your own skin, you kind of have to face that monster that's inside us all, and not be afraid to. You know, don't bottle it up. You know, express it.
Have you ever seen such terrifyingly detailed goblins? I just hope they don't come alive in my nightmares tonight. Next, we're heading to Oakland Cemetery, which, for a cemetery, is actually quite wonderful.
It is an Atlanta city park. So we're just like Piedmont Park, only we have 70,000 residents that we take care of.
Once you come here, you fall in love with the place. It has a wonderful vibe to it that's just very satisfying.
The most unique feature, I think, of Oakland, beside the history that's buried here and the monuments to that history, are our beautiful gardens. The Victorians, who I think got burial right many, many years ago when churchyards were filling up, and they realized that they needed to go out in the country and find some larger tracts of land to bury the dead of their growing metropolises, would marry the idea of a cemetery, which means sleeping place, with a park. And so Oakland Cemetery developed in that way in 1850. So by the 1850s, 60, and 70, we had developed into what is known as a Victorian Rural Garden Cemetery.
The tree behind us is a cherry laurel, which by all counts is an invasive plant. It's a native plant, but it does tend to take over, and the mockingbirds spread it around. But this one's been around for a very long time. I could not even say if it was here before 1850 when the cemetery began.
What I always like to tell people, it doesn't matter if you owned the railroad, rode it, or slept under it, this is where you were buried. There are 27 mayors buried here. Mayor of Atlanta is buried here in Atlanta, 6 governors, 5 Confederate generals, 6,900 Confederate soldiers, a historic African-American section, Jewish sections. There are 55 beautiful mausolea, which are the testament to those that were successful in rebuilding the city after the Civil War. These are the folks here that paved the paths upon which we walk today. And you can walk right into Oakland Cemetery and experience all of that for yourself for free. The top 5 in terms of visitation, I think that it's a toss-up between Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind, and Bobby Jones, the famous golfer, probably the most famous amateur golfer of all time. Bobby won what was known as the Grand Slam of golf, and that is all 4 major tournaments of his day in 1929. So he and Margaret are the top 2. We've got 5 Confederate generals. John B. Gordon was a very important general for General Lee during the Civil War. He was also a Georgia governor and a state senator. So a lot of people come to get that aspect of what we're all about here. I like to show people the mausoleum of Dr. Joe Jacobs. Now, Dr. Jacobs had a pharmacy in downtown Atlanta. And in that pharmacy, he had a person working with him who was a mixologist. He mixed soft drinks, if you will. There was also a headache tonic that was created by a Dr. Pemberton that was sold at the pharmacy. Well, some man came in one time and wanted that headache tonic. Well, it tasted bad, so the mixologist mixed it in with a little fizzy water, and the man drank it and said, wow, this tastes really good. Well, that was Coca-Cola, and that happened at Dr. Jacobs Drugstore in downtown Atlanta. Of the 27 mayors that we have here, a couple come to mind. I say one I grew up with, and that's Ivan Allen Jr., he's here. And one that probably is significant also, and that's Maynard Jackson, who was our first African-American mayor here in Atlanta. Served 3 terms. He's buried right up front when you come in, on the left. In fact, his widow Valerie Jackson, who's been a great supporter of ours and board member, has spent several years trying to figure out what would be the most suitable monument to her husband. Heretofore, he's had a very modest headstone marking his spot, but now he has a very beautiful monument that's very large, because she said, well, he was a large man and he had big ideas and big ideals, and he helped shape this city. And so, interestingly enough, when you visit Maynard's gravesite, unlike a lot of folks who face east in the Christian tradition of the sunrise and the resurrection, Maynard's facing west toward the city, so that if in case he sits up, he can check out what's going on and make sure everything's okay in Atlanta. Places like Oakland create what we call a sense of place, what philosophers and psychologists and clergy people talk about having a sense of who you are, where you came from, and that way you can always figure out and frame where you're going. A place where people could come back and, oh, by the way, walk their dog, stroll their child, picnic, do all the things that you would do in a public park, but also tend to the graves of their ancestors and pay homage to the history that they had made.
It's the whole feeling of relaxation, of serenity, of comfort, and just to have a wonderful experience and to walk away feeling refreshed. Come and enjoy us. We are a public garden that is open year-round, 365 days of the year. There's plenty of history if that's what you're into. If you're a family, bring your children. Let them enjoy a place that you can give them a little freedom away from the worry of cars and things like that. But just come and enjoy the place, because it really is a wonderful gift to have in the heart of the city.
Oakland Cemetery is only blocks away from here, and yet I never knew how much history you could find there. I'll definitely have to stop and check it out soon. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on Georgia Detours. I hope this episode helped you find wonder in unexpected places. Be sure to tune in next week. I'm your host, September Whitfield. See you soon.